Welcome, everyone. It's the Crypto Lark. Very excited to have on today Peter McCormack of the very popular What Bitcoin Did podcast. Peter, how's it going?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. And we're going to be talking about all kinds of just fun Bitcoin stuff today. So we're going to cover a lot of topics here, guys. So make sure you stick around, as it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think let's just start off with a nice, fun, simple question. Why Bitcoin? What is that magic moment with you for Bitcoin where you're like, that's the thing?
Yeah, good question. Really good question. There's no single time or date, and I discovered Bitcoin a couple of times in my life. Like discovered it with the Silk Road when I was like, oh, what the fuck, you can do this, and then discovered it again like late 2016, and but like shitcoins as well, and then I kind of gone on a journey of just kind of learning more about it, understanding more about it. But why Bitcoin? I can answer that two ways. I can answer it one way and just say, well, look, I've got this new career, right, where I'm a podcaster and I get to interview people and it's done very well and it's providing me a salary. So that's a very good reason to continue looking into it. I can do two things. I can build a flexible life around my children and get to travel the world and meet amazing people and do that and continue it on. But also, I can give the other side, which is I'm just drawn into it. Like, there's certain kind of times where like the world changes, things happen, new
Mm-hmm.
things like the internet was born was a big time. For other people, years ago would have been when electricity happened or when the railroads. There's this really great book called Engines That Move Markets, which is all about the big, industrial or technology changes that change the world. And I feel like Bitcoin is one of those. I don't like the analogy with the internet because the internet is so much bigger. It's now allows anything to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like any interaction anywhere. Like we can do this because of the internet, and I can buy something of somebody. I could be when I was in Vietnam, I could have bought something on my mobile phone from somebody who was in Chile, and I can also send an email from here to like we've just seen that thing where we've got the first space crime. Did you see this?
Wait, the first space crime?
The first space crime. So one guy, like I try and remember it correctly, it's out this week. Some dude who was up in the International Space Station, like hacked his wife's bank account or something while in space, right? But that's because of the internet, right? So the
That's
internet does
amazing.
all this stuff, and I think Bitcoin is just one of those things of the internet. So I don't like the analogy, but I do at the same time. We're living one of those times where we're seeing money is being redefined, right? Money is changing. It's gone from like we consider we have like a bank account with an amount of money and that we can send here, there, or everywhere with a checkbook or a credit card or with cash. And then we've had other things like PayPal where you can deposit money, but now we're seeing like money being redefined. And I kind of missed the boat with the internet. I lived through it, but never really realized I could have done something that would have been important in that. But we're seeing money being redefined here, like literally being redefined. And I'm like you in a position where I can be part of that. My part of that is to have conversations with people, learn about it myself, educate others, maybe challenge as well. But
Mm-hmm.
money's being redefined, and it's just a really fascinating thing to be part of.
It's very exciting, and I think a lot of it comes down to the when people make the analogy of the internet. I remember how exciting the internet was. I was young still, but I remember getting our first sort of like we had like this web TV thing was kind of this box you hook it into your TV and you connect with the old dial-up modem. Wait for you to get the phone and all that fun stuff. But that was fun. It was so exciting. I was young and I was connecting with these people like all across America, and I was trading like Magic the Gathering cards with people I'd never met through the mail. It was amazing, and the
Wow.
internet made this stuff possible. And I feel
So
like
you
go ahead.
so you got a connection to Mount Gox then?
No, no, I didn't. I wasn't. This was before. This was
Yeah,
like
but
95. Yeah, no,
yeah, but you do
94.
you know why Mount Gox is called Mount Gox, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was the Magic the
Yeah, yeah,
Gathering exchange, and then they
yeah.
started doing Bitcoin later on.
So I've heard about this Magic the Gathering thing, but I actually don't know what it is. Like I've heard about it, and I know it's like some trading thing, but I still don't know what it is. But it seems to have been like a big thing for a whole bunch of people.
Oh, it was a massive thing. It was, this was video games were starting to get popular then, right? We had Nintendo in the 80s and PlayStation in the 90s, but there was still a lot of, I guess, imagination being around, and so basically it was battling wizards. You'd have a deck of 60 cards, and you were a wizard, and the other guy was a wizard, and you'd battle with your cards, and it was a lot of fun. And there were some really
How
rare cards, and that's why you could trade it online for them and stuff. And
how old are you?
how old am I? 34 now. 34. Sometimes I
Oh, you're
forget.
young, you're younger than me. You're like an 80s child. So I just crept into the 70s. I'm 40, so I was born in 78. But we're
Nice.
similar age.
And I think for me, when I think about Bitcoin, I feel that same kind of excitement. That same kind of like, this is something new and very interesting and very exciting, and there's a whole new community of people kind of coming up around it in a way that I feel like nothing else previously in the internet really got me that excited, because it's something totally new that we're doing with technology in terms of money and stuff like that. I mean, Facebook came out. That was exciting, I guess, for a minute, and then Facebook went downhill, and now this is kind of this whole new exciting thing that's really redefining the way we look at money. It's the financial layer of the internet, if we can kind of think of it like that.
Yeah, and we don't know what it is going to be. Like at the moment, it is another currency, right? Or it's digital gold, whatever. But it is just another currency with a $200 billion market cap, or whatever it's at. So there are people who want hyper Bitcoinization, and they're like, Bitcoin's going to take over. It's going to be the dominant store of value in the world. It's going to change finance. Maybe, maybe not. It might just be a dual currency, but it's starting to offer some other things. Like we've got timestamping now, which is like hugely important. We've got decentralized IDs coming with Microsoft, and other people are working on things like that. So there's some other things starting to happen, and it's like we don't actually know where this will go. Will it be the dominant currency of the world, or will it become something that allows us to have more anonymity when we're online? Is it going to provide more privacy? Is it going to make governments more accountable? We don't, nobody really knows where it's going to go. People have different hypotheses, but to be part of that or watch it while smart people figure it out, I think it's so fascinating.
It's really interesting to see what's being developed and basically how all this is moving now. Obviously, Bitcoin gets a lot of attention for a whole variety of reasons, from the fact that it's the most secure network, that it's got 70% of the market dominance and all this stuff at the moment. But what are your thoughts on the rest of the crypto market? Do you see a lot of interesting things being done there? Do you see a lot of value being created there? Is there anything that's kind of caught your eye?
Yeah, so that's a really tricky question to answer. Because there was a time where I covered other projects on my podcast, and I used to get a lot of shit for it. So when I first interviewed Roger Ver, Craig Wright, I got so much shit, and I didn't really understand at the time. And I primarily covered Bitcoin, but occasionally would interview other projects, and I always got shit for it. So I really struggle with it for a couple of reasons. Okay, so my honest opinion is I don't see anything else being created of value, right, with a blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at it and go, is there really, really any point to Litecoin, Dash, any of these projects? And I look at it and go, strictly speaking, they will probably fail. Most likely. I mean, Bitcoin itself is hard, right? To have a dual currency that offers very little difference. I mean, the only difference it offers maybe is its slightly faster transaction times. So I struggle with those. And then, I look at something like Ethereum, and I'm like, I with this, I always say I'm not technical. So if you're not technical, what do you do? But you want to have some kind of observation or opinion in the market. I have to then trust the opinions of other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to look at the opinions of other people and what they're saying about it, and use that as a kind of benchmark for me. And I really struggle to find anyone I respect have a strong position on Ethereum. And I think about it, I think, well, why is that? So I'm at the moment going through this process of setting up a node, right? My first time. It's very interesting. And I've got my laptop here, and Bitcoin blocks are restricted to 1 megabyte, and the entire blockchain to download is nearly at 250 gigabytes. So the laptop I was going to do it on won't work because it's got a 250 gigabyte hard drive. So okay, I can't use that. So I need a bigger hard drive. Okay, I mean, I can get one with a terabyte or an external drive, which I've done. But that's the dominant cryptocurrency in the market, which is the most used, has the most liquidity. But I have to consider the hardware I'm using to be able to run a node. And if we're saying the important thing about blockchain is decentralization, that's the most important thing, that it can't be controlled. Well, then I look at something like Ethereum that wants to put so much stuff on a blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
or you look at other things like BSV, which wants its gigabyte blocks, and I'm thinking, well, in that scenario, how am I meant to run a node? And if I can't run a node, does that mean nodes are then run by data centers or by rich people? And therefore, is it
Hmm.
truly decentralized? And it's certainly not decentralized in a way like Bitcoin is. So I just have to then write them off and go, well, that's pointless. And if you can't then run an, one of my Eric Wall, one of my friends, he's trying to set up a Ethereum node at the moment, documenting it, and he's struggling. So if you can only run an Ethereum node through, say, Infura, does that mean Infura is a central point of failure? It sounds like it to me. And therefore, if you can't decentralize it, what's the point of having a ledger? You might as well just have a database. So in my limited understanding, they seem like dumpster trucks. But at the same time, when somebody says to me everything is a scam, I also think that's dangerous terminology, because I think it's important to separate one from what is a scam and what isn't. Because a scam for me is somebody says, right, I'm going to create this so I can convince people something that isn't true so I can make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a scam. That's what's different for me is there are some projects that have honest intentions, but that just are stupid. So, for example, I don't believe everybody who's involved in Ethereum, the tens of thousands, hundreds, however many people involved in developing, building stuff, are all sitting there thinking, I want to rip people off. I think they honestly think it can work, but they're just misguided. So I think it's really important to separate the two, because I don't want to. I think you're kind of like giving some scammers a pass by calling everything a scam. You're kind of reducing the impact of the word.
I agree.
Um, so I have no interest in any other project. I think there's something interesting in Monero, and again, I'm not technical, but it has, in some ways, some great anonymity around transacting. So, for example, if I held a bunch of Monero and I wanted to buy some drugs off of somebody, and I felt that was fine, and they wanted to take Monero, in my simple mind, I would trust that more than using, say, Bitcoin. Now, if I say that, and if I ever put that out there, say I put that on Twitter, there's going to be a whole bunch of people go, "You're a fucking shitcoiner. You're an idiot. You don't understand what you're doing." Blah blah blah. So, it's really difficult. Also, if you're hosting a podcast and you ever have an opinion that people don't like, you can get absolutely crucified for it. So, I am only interested in Bitcoin right now. I see it's the only one that's going to have long-term viability. I think most of these other blockchain projects are going to struggle, but I'm not so closed-minded as to say nothing with a blockchain that isn't Bitcoin can never work, blah, blah, blah. If something else comes out, yeah, fine, cool, I'm interested, but I'm yet to see it. And as I'm yet to see it, there's little reason for me to spend any time on anything other than Bitcoin.
Very interesting. I really understand why a lot of people go just Bitcoin and that's it. It keeps your life a lot simpler. Let me tell you that. You don't have to worry about all this other stuff going
Yep.
on because, like, well, it's just Bitcoin. I look around and I see there's so much innovation going on, and there's a lot of innovation going on that's not happening on Bitcoin. And, we look at Ethereum, for example, and whether or not Ethereum is going to succeed long term. What they're doing in terms of innovation for, I think, blockchain overall is going to have a massive impact long term. When you look at different token standards and in-game collectibles and all this stuff, is that necessarily a platform that it's going to work on? Time will tell, right? But that innovation, this is one of the things I always think about when people are like, everything that's not Bitcoin's a scam. Like, wait a second, there's all this innovation going on out there that these developers, these tens of thousands of developers, or however many there might be building on Ethereum, they chose to build on Ethereum. They're innovating over there, and that innovation, maybe it'll help Bitcoin later on. Maybe it'll move on to something new that will be a parallel network or whatever it might be, So I like the innovation. I like seeing so much innovation go on. I think it's very exciting to see these different things. And, you brought up Monero as well. And I think it's a really great point, actually, because right now we have three major privacy implementations for blockchain. It's ring signatures on Monero, it's ZK Snarks with Zcash and a few other coins, and it's Mimblewimble with Beam and Grin. And it becomes a very tricky conversation because if you want privacy, you don't really have it on Bitcoin. You have pseudo-anonymity, right? So as soon as I know what your Bitcoin address is, I now know how much money you have, and I can also track your Bitcoin address. So when you try to move money from one Bitcoin address to another, I know what you're doing because now I know who you are. And if I want to go out and dox you, I can do that, right? With Monero, that's not an option. With Mimblewimble, that's not an option, right? And I think those are all strong privacy technologies, the three of them. The question then becomes, if for example, someday we want to see one of those on top of Bitcoin or running as a parallel to Bitcoin, whatever it might be. I know there's a lot of synergy between the Mimblewimble guys and the Bitcoin team, and well, not the Bitcoin team, but a lot of the Bitcoin core
Yeah.
developers. So maybe that'll be the one. But then, where do we find the decision of why would we choose Mimblewimble over ZK Snarks or ring signatures, right? So I like that there's actually the cryptocurrency markets providing a lot of alternatives. And look, let's keep it real. Most people, if you were to say, hey, ZK Snarks, ring signatures, or Mimblewimble, which do you think is a more robust privacy technology? They're going to be like, what the frick are you talking about? I don't know what any of that stuff means, right? But the market is providing alternatives. And I think that's a really healthy thing.
Well, I come back to the point though, like with any of this, like, and you can go back to the analogy of the internet. It's like people go, oh, in the early days, loads of things failed. Boo.com failed, Webvan failed, Pets.com failed. I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, things were succeeding. Yahoo was succeeding. Alta
Mm-hmm.
Vista was
Mm-hmm.
succeeding. You could shop online. You could create blogs. Like, there was stuff that was succeeding. We're 10 years in, and what is succeeding outside of Bitcoin? Also, what is success? That's hard to define. But
This
like,
is true.
Bitcoin is breakout success for me now. Like when you all have futures and you have people on like the Nasdaq interested in it, and you've got back to come in, and
Yeah, Fidelity
let's
pushing it to their
your
customers. It's
Fidelity, yeah, and like institutional custody solution. Like Bitcoin has succeeded. It's not like it's done. It's succeeded, right? So I'm okay. I'm like, where else is there success and breakout apps? The most breakout success I think has been on Ethereum in creating developer tools. But if the developers aren't creating something that people use at the end, then there is no breakout success. So for me at the moment, nobody else has succeeded, and I wonder why. And I think it's comes down to like, what is it you're trying to solve here? Like
mm,
the thing that Bitcoin solves is censorship resistance, right? And also like remittance and a few other things. Okay, so if that's the innovation, what else is being solved here? There is no there is no consumer demand for unstoppable apps right now. There isn't. People don't really give a fuck about privacy. Like, how many times do we hear about our data being stolen or Facebook do some
and
fucking
everyone's
evil
still on
shit?
Facebook.
Everyone's still on Facebook. Like, people want privacy, but they don't care enough to change their life for it.
Mm-hmm.
Google track the shit out of us. People still use Chrome. Like, we've just kind of accepted this surveillance capitalism. Now, I think it will be things will change when it's provided by the large companies. So Apple are looking to provide a new login system which offers more privacy. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
If you make it really easy, people are going to use it. I don't think there is a significant demand for private transactions enough for people to say, I want Zcash, I want Monero. I don't think there is.
To have
I
serious
think,
debates about the different technologies and stuff like that as
yeah,
well. You're right, absolutely.
it just isn't. If I went down the pub with like 50 of my friends and I say, who gives a fuck about this? A few will put their hands up. I say, okay, here's the technology. And I come back in a month later, I go, who's used it? It will be zero. No one will have used it because
Mm-hmm.
they don't care that much to go through the friction. Now we're gonna get better privacy with Lightning Network, and Lightning Network I think is still early. I think Lightning Network realistically needs like a decade, like Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
But once it's all abstracted away, people who have access to Bitcoin will enjoy and benefit from the privacy offered by Bitcoin and Lightning. But I think it will. I think privacy and anonymity with regards to how you spend will won't come at the won't come as an option. It will just be built into a process. So maybe we'll get to the point where it's really easy to create a decentralized ID on the Bitcoin network. And then if you want to buy something, you do so using the tools that are already inherently built into Bitcoin and Lightning
Mm-hmm.
without even realizing. But I don't think people care enough about this other stuff. And, at some point you got to put your kind of like, I wonder how many of these people care about the technology they don't have bags for. I think some people carry a certain level of hopium because they want to make some money off it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where it comes from. And yeah, there's all this innovation happening, but it's a solution looking for a problem, and that problem doesn't exist right now.
That's true to an extent. I absolutely can see that. I feel like, what Bitcoin's had 10 years, and we were coming up on, 11 years in January, right? So that's a lot of history, right? Whereas you look at Ethereum, and Ethereum's 5 years old now, approximately, and so it's still relatively young, and it proved itself as being this platform for fundraising with all these ICOs and stuff like that, and to be able to launch their tokens on the network. But Ethereum, it failed to get people using it, and I think it is. If we give it 10 years, let's talk about Ethereum in 10 years, we might be looking at a very different blockchain if they successfully upgrade and all this stuff. And it's not about, Ethereum, if it all gets pulled off correctly. It's not about Ethereum being digital gold, right? It might be more like digital oil, and it might have a lot of apps running on it and stuff like this that might be useful. I mean, in-game collectibles, for example, that's interesting, right? That doesn't need to run on top of Bitcoin. It might not even be best suited on top of Bitcoin. Now, maybe Lightning Network will find implementations for that, but we got a lot of things to work through to get to those kind of points. But I think there's no arguing that right now Bitcoin's got the biggest network effect by and large, right? So that's where the money's flowing. That's where a lot of the forward-thinking developing is looking at. But I definitely think that if we can see these upgrades happen for like Ethereum, it will provide value. Now, does that mean that it's going to be the best investment to make? Not necessarily, right? By any means. I see a lot more of that money flowing towards Bitcoin, right? Because we are getting the Bitcoin ETF sometime, Bitcoin futures from Bakkt and all this stuff. Now, maybe we'll have Ethereum futures. Maybe we'll have an Ethereum ETF in the coming years. Again, we're still quite early.
I don't think you'll see an Ethereum future. I think it's too risky. I just don't see it happening.
I think especially because there's no set monetary policy for Ethereum. I think that's one of the things that really makes it hard. The Bakkt can look at Bitcoin and go, well, that's coded in. We know what the emission rate's going to be. We know that this is not going to be any funny games here. Whereas with Ethereum, they still have no idea. They've got no final date for how much Ethereum will be mined, what the rates are going to be, and they're just making it up as they go. And that's okay because Ethereum's not supposed to be money, right? Ethereum is supposed to be a gas payment to use applications on the network, right? So it's interesting. I like a lot of the cryptocurrencies that are outside of that, but I at the same time I want to see real value being created.
Which are you using?
Which do I use?
Yeah, and I ask that because I use Bitcoin, say 10 times a month.
Yep.
I issue invoices. I pay people in Bitcoin. I buy things in Bitcoin. I top up my Bitcoin. Like, I use it not to just support the system. I just use it. It makes sense to me. I don't use anything else because I have no need. So when anyone says that to me, I'm like, what do you use regularly?
I regularly use Ethereum for a couple of different things, mostly for decentralized exchanges. There's no games that I play on Ethereum. But I would play games on Ethereum. I actually bought a bunch of collectible cards on Ethereum for a game called Gods Unchained. So I would use that. I haven't actually got around to playing the game yet. I've just got the cards sitting there, but that's a working game that people are playing. But the one I use the most is Ethereum. Of the other cryptocurrencies that I have, what am I actually using on a regular basis? I've got Monero because I like Monero for different reasons. But outside of that, not very many. I mean, I've got EOS, and I've used some EOS applications mainly as testing for fun to see what's going on with these different applications, but I haven't come across any cryptocurrency game or application yet that made me go, wow, this is like the new paradigm of games, or this is the new paradigm of whatever, right? And I see some of that stuff being developed on Ethereum in terms of like really shaking up the gaming world. I think that could be very interesting as one of many use cases, but that's...
Do you use Bitcoin?
What's that?
Do you use Bitcoin at all?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
There you go. Okay, so this is like a really good point. So like your use case for Ethereum, I see, is the death spiral, right? You use it for the trade of shitcoins, to access an exchange to trade shitcoins. But if no new value is being created, it's a death spiral, because you get winners and losers, and as you lose, you either exit or you keep throwing money into the casino, right? So it's only used to support and prop up the use and trading of shitcoins, but eventually people leave. Eventually people give up because they get wrecked. So unless you've got new people coming in, or you're throwing new money in, it's a death spiral to me. So that's like a no. So you've got that, and then you said, well, you got Monero, for buying crack.
I don't want people to know I'm buying crack, man. Oh, wait, I didn't say that on the internet. Wait a second. No, but that's the thing. I've got something like Monero for
Yeah,
because I want to have some private money, right? I've actually got some
yeah.
Beam as well for an investment more than anything, but I also like the idea of having private money in
Let
that
me tell you the other
situation as
thing though.
well. Yo,
The other thing is like the thing I really like about Bitcoin. It doesn't serve any central company or body,
mm,
right? It is genuinely decentralized. And I know people can point to things and go, well, this bit here is centralized, or the development, whatever. Like it is generally decentralized, but with all these other things, they really are a company. They really are a company. Like
this is true.
Ethereum, whatever they say. To me, it's a company because so many people uh, got a significant stake in Ethereum when it was launched and have like an incentive to grow it. Like they're essentially shareholders, whatever people fucking say, they're
Mm,
shareholders. And anything with a pre-mine essentially has shareholders. So it's just fundamentally less interesting. It's just like, oh, I care less. There are no shareholders of Bitcoin. Yeah, there's people who mined early or people who bought in early, but they took the risk, But I just I struggle with these other things just to be interested and you know I take a lot of shit for it, but like, I just think it's most of it's bollocks, mate. I think
well,
most of it's bollocks.
honestly, mate, I can understand why you look at that, and history has not proven very well the success of many different cryptocurrencies which are not Bitcoin, right? We've seen strong
Yeah.
communities grow around things like Litecoin, for example, but realistically, there are other cryptocurrencies which have come out after Litecoin that are faster and cheaper, right? If you want a fast, cheap alternative, well, you have something that's not Litecoin, right? Now you can use
Well,
Litecoin. You can choose to use Litecoin the same way you can choose to use silver if you have gold, right? You can have both of them, but one of
I
them
don't buy
is
that. I
more.
never buy that. I never buy that silver gold analogy. But you've made a really good point there. If your argument of Litecoin is better than Bitcoin because it's faster, then it's like, well, why aren't you using XRP because that's faster than?
And
And like,
cheaper and
yeah.
has
So
higher
like,
liquidity.
you can always find something like if you're basing it on some kind of like I don't know, some kind of factor such as speed or cost of transaction, you can always find something that's better. The great thing about Bitcoin, it isn't that makes it so great. It is the security. It is like it is so many like Dan Held calls it like Bitcoin's immaculate conception. There's so many things about it that are so unique, and I just find it so much more interesting. So like we can talk about shitcoins, but I'm just going to rag on them.
That's all. And I understand why, honestly. But it's like I said, I think a lot of cryptocurrencies outside of Bitcoin have struggled to prove their purpose, and I strongly believe that some of them will have a lot of strong value going forward in the future. Ethereum might be one of those, but again, we're talking about different conceptualizations of what's useful and what's not useful, right? And so there's a whole
Well,
big
people
conversation to have around that, but
And then one thing, and even Bitcoin has struggled with this. People need to get on the mindset of the real fucking world, right? So, fortunately, one part of my career I was a UX designer. So I spent like 4 or 5 years as UX designer, designing interfaces, user experiences, and like in all of crypto is shit. So if you of the people in the Ethereum world are like, yeah, well, we believe Ethereum is going to be, great for X, Y, Z. It's like, well, firstly, even your concept of gas is too complicated for the average person. MetaMask is a fucking pain. So you're saying to people, I've got this amazing unstoppable application. So somebody has to care about the application being unstoppable, which they won't. They won't. But just say they do. Then you've got to convince them to go to an exchange and buy Ethereum, know how to use a wallet, know how to use MetaMask, store their private keys. It's like, really? There's like so much inertia to adoption. Like you speak to anyone who's created a startup and they've got these brilliant. I mean, I've done two, right? I had a startup which was a social network for football fans, which was so much fun. Like a game of football was on, you pick your side, and like if there was a penalty, you could vote on whether you thought it was. It was so cool. We had so much struggle getting people to sign up. When they signed up, they loved it, and then they never came back. Right? I did another one. Like people don't like create. Have you got a will?
I will. No.
Yeah. No. All right. No fucker does their will. No one wants to do their will, right? Despite the fact it takes you a couple of hours, and if you don't do it, when you die, it causes a lot of problems. Okay. I created the easiest possible way of creating a will, right? You literally, it would ask you to fill in a thing. My name is, then you type your name. I am, like from a drop down, you select married, single, whatever. It was the easiest way to create a will online, right? Everyone who used it, fuck, that was brilliant. I offered it out to my 800 friends on Facebook. Say, because you're my friends, you can use it for free. This is why you should do a will. 2 people did it. There is so much inertia to adoption that you've got to not only have you got to create something people want to use and care about, they want to come back to it, and they've got to go through all this other stuff. I think people need to get in the real fucking wild. They're so far away from how people think and use applications, interact with applications, that, to be honest, most of it just needs abstracting away.
The easier you can make things, the better, without a doubt. I mean, if you think about options, right? You go back to the early days of the internet, and well, you had to do the dial up and all that stuff, and it was a pain in the butt, and it took a couple minutes, but that was your only option. You had to get through it, right? If you wanted to send an email, it was more efficient, even though you had to go through all these hoops, than going down to the post office, sending a letter, waiting for a week for it to get to your side of the country, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it was an innovation, even though it was a difficult innovation. We see that happening with cryptocurrencies, where unless we do see them really pushing that boundary and getting beyond this kind of tough stage where they're not very user friendly. I mean, we struggle through it. Even Bitcoin's a big learning curve for people. And when you start to tell people, well, you got to have some Ethereum in order to pay the gas to send your token and do all this stuff. And for a lot of people, it's too much. Like you said, we have to abstract away all the craziness. Now, I actually want to move on from talking about the wider cryptocurrency markets to talk about the Lightning Network. So you touched on it briefly. You think it's not going to be ready for quite a while yet. I mean, we're very early stages in the Lightning Network right now. Well, it does work. I've used Lightning Network transactions.
Yeah. It works. You can use it. It certainly works in a custodial environment better than non-custodial. That's a fact that it's people have to be honest about. We don't want it to be working better in a custodial way because we want decentralization. We don't want to have to trust some custodial service, but at the moment it does. In terms of non-custodial, I like the potential of Lightning. I like the fact that, for example, with my podcast, if you want to get the ad-free version, it's $60, and if you pay by Lightning, it's very cool because I send you an invoice and it's paid instantly. It's quick. That's fucking great.
Lightning Network's amazingly quick, and it's done.
Yeah, but a $60 purchase, I invoice in Bitcoin, right? If I'm doing like an ad invoice, say it's $3,000, right? If I can't do that on Lightning, I wouldn't know how to. I would be scared to. And there's so much stuff in Lightning. Like, again, this comes back to UX, like watchtowers and channel capacity and opening. Like, I'm sorry, but this is way.
You ever tried to cash Bitcoin out of the Lightning Network and put it back on chain?
Have I done that? I think so, but I think I've done it. No, I don't think I have.
It's incredibly difficult right now.
But it's going to come.
It will come, absolutely. But that's where we are with Lightning Network right now, where it's easy enough to get money in. It's really hard to get it out. We have all these different situations where it's not really user friendly. I mean, it is, right? But it's not what it can be in terms of user friendliness.
But if you look at Bitcoin right now, like if I want to send you Bitcoin, you send me an address, I go into my wallet, I paste the address, and I send. Super cool, super easy. It just works. Well, the addition of Lightning has changed a few things. There's a few additional things we have to know about, a few breaking points that are there. So fine, that may be fixed. I think Lightning for me will be consumer ready when that's all abstracted away. When I go into a wallet and I've got Bitcoin balance, Lightning balance, I can switch between the two. I can send as much as I want to another address without thinking about it. Once that happens, great. But at the moment, I think people are too defensive about the UX issues with Lightning, and we are not there. But at the same time, I believe in it as enough, and I believe that it is the right way to scale Bitcoin. But I just think there's work to be done.
I think you made a really good point earlier too about feeling comfortable with a $60 transaction versus a $3,000 transaction. I've always imagined this is going to be the future of the Lightning Network. If you want big transactions, if the big whale who moves $500 million worth of Bitcoin, that guy wants an on-chain transaction. I mean, the Lightning Network can't even scale that yet, but more importantly, there's a terms of security, and then there's what you don't need as much security for. Like you have, a credit card, and you have the tap and go thing, right? That's up to $85 on the tap and go thing.
Yeah.
For a reason, right? After that, you require a step more security for a larger purchase. And I see Lightning Network largely operating like that.
I think that's a great analogy. I initially used to think about it as like Bitcoin is my bank account and Lightning is my debit card. But I actually didn't like that analogy because I can still spend 3, 4, 5,000 on my debit card, right? I might get a phone call from the bank or a text saying confirm this. The way I actually think about it is a good analogy is bank account and cash,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because my bank account I will keep a huge amount of money on, and my cash I'll never really carry more than $100, $200. And I think that's the analogy right now. But then we don't want to put a $200 restriction on cash. Can you wait 1 second? That was the
Yeah,
door.
off you go.
Sorry.
Off you go.
Sorry about that. I got delivery. I think this is
Ah,
to do with my.
you're all
this is to
good.
do with my node I'm setting up.
Nice,
So I've got
nice,
my hard disk. You know, I said to you about not having enough space. I got my hard disk. I've got my Raspberry Pi.
nice.
So I'm going to create a node. What the fuck is this, man? What a weird interview this is that you're getting to see me as my host.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is all the.
you
This is all
don't
the
just
shit I
talk
created
about
in
it;
my
you live
node.
it. There it is. The stuff's coming in the mail.
I'm like, yeah, I'm going to create my own fucking node. But like, yeah, I see it more like cash right now. So my Lightning thing is my cash. Right, it's my cash size transactions. But at the same time, I guess when you speak to Lightning people, they'll say, well, eventually we want you to be able to send thousands over.
Mm-hmm. And well, that's it.
And
They want to build the network up like that, and it's does it need to be? Can it be? Can it be is a question, and I think this is where I look at a lot of cryptocurrencies. They're not Bitcoin, and I think they can. So why not? But same with Lightning Network. Can you send thousands? You can send thousands of dollars across it right now. Do you need to? No. Can you? Yeah. Should you? Don't know. Maybe not. I
yeah,
wouldn't want to.
but it's definitely interesting. The technology is definitely interesting, and like I've got no like if you want some money off me, you say Pete, I want $1,000. I'll send you a Bitcoin transaction. If you said I want $50, I'll be like, do you want to use Lightning? And I would use it, and I'm perfectly happy using both of them now, and I can find my way with it. But if like I've got some friends into Bitcoin and they're doing okay with it, them to get into Lightning, it's too far right now. It's too much. I think we need to get to that point where Lightning is like inherently linked to Bitcoin in a way that almost every service has Bitcoin Lightning together. Like,
Mm-hmm.
here's your Bitcoin wallet, here's your Lightning wallet. Yeah, they sit side by side, like a current account. The same. They're just always there, and it's very easy to move between the two. Um, yeah, I think that's what's required for me. One of the things I've always done with my podcast is try and keep it for beginners, right? And I purposely, like on purpose, have not gone down the full technical rabbit hole to learn everything technically about how it works, because my worry is if I do that, I then won't think in terms of the beginners, the new people, right? And I think that's dangerous. So I purposely do not do full technical research to fully understand everything, because each time I approach it, I want to approach it going, "Can I? I don't get this. Right? This is
Mm-hmm.
what I don't get and why." Rather than like I've got this thing with a node at the moment, right? Setting up a node is not complicated, right? It's kind of easy. Of course, I can figure it out, right? I've figured out how to use Audacity and GarageBand to engineer podcasts. I created my own website. I edit the HTML to put tracking in there. I do my own search engine optimization. I can set up a node. It's right, not complicated. But I never have. One, I never felt a need, and two, I just when I've heard about things to do with a node, they're like, yeah, you need to verify your own transactions. But and I was like, well, I'm kind of happy with my hardware wallet. It does what I want. I'm cool. And then I was like, well, maybe I need to think about a node. Okay, so I transparently said, I've not done a node for these reasons. And when I've been trying to set it up, I've been transparently sharing my experience. Go, well, I tried to set it up, and then I had to go pruning, and I don't know what pruning is. Again, I can find this all out, but I think it's more useful to act like a novice and say, these are the problems I found, so people have a wider awareness. Because if people want mass adoption, they've got to stop thinking everyone is going to go down the rabbit hole. They're going to read Mastering Bitcoin. They're going to understand how
Mm-hmm.
consensus works. They don't give a fuck. What they want to do is have some Bitcoin and make some money off it, and they want to be able to move it. And if you think everyone's going to do that, you're living in cloud cuckoo land. So I, as much as I get so much abuse and a grief that I'm a moron for this and I'm cringeworthy and like, why has he got a successful podcast if he can't set up a node? It's not that. I'm trying to show people the experience that others will have.
I liked actually something that you said on Twitter was, I ask questions to my guests that I might know the answer to, but people listening might not know. It was something like that
Yeah.
that you said, and it's
No,
like,
that's
yeah, that's why we have these conversations. People get more knowledge, you know.
I know you get these morons that go, "Oh, he asked this. He's a fucking idiot. Why do people listen to this podcast?" I'm like, I know the answer to the question, but I want it explained from an expert. So when the listeners, like my podcast is for listeners to learn, right? There are great podcasts out there where people can, like, Noded is amazing, Stefan Rivera is amazing, Tales from the Crypt is amazing, Trace Mayer is amazing. Trace and Safety can sit and have a massive debate about economics, and great, it's brilliant, right? But I want to turn around to Safety and go, why is Keynesian economics flawed? Okay, what is wrong with inflation? What is inflation? Like, I know what fucking inflation is, but I want to have it so it's approachable and accessible for everyone. But you've got these morons who hear that and go, "Well, he's a fucking idiot. Why is he asking that question?" It's like, do you not understand?
The important thing to keep in mind is there's new people coming in every single day, and I think that's
Every
really
day.
really exciting. And we have to keep welcoming these people in to the crypto community. You know, we have new people coming in. They want to get knowledge. They want to get educated on this stuff. And we have to keep educating them. Now, I
Dude,
gotta
my listen, dude,
go ahead.
my dad still phones me up with problems with his computer. And I'll be like, right, can you open a browser? He's like, what a browser? I've told you a bunch of times. It's Google. You know the Google logo? He was like, isn't Google search? I'm like, yeah, but Google also has a browser. He's like, okay. So I open the Google browser. Yeah, open the Google browser, the Chrome thing, and then go to Google. And he's like, no, I'm on Google. No, I said, no, Google. Do you see what I mean? Like, this is the kind of shit I'm fucking dealing with, you know? Or you know, like, for example, if my sister said she wanted some Bitcoin, and I would explain to her, I'd have to go through a methodical, slow process, right? If you want mass adoption, you've got to think about throughput. If you want throughput, you've got to make these things easier for people. There's a reason tens of millions of hardware wallets have been sold, yet we have, like, what is it, 10, 15,000 nodes? There is a reason. And if your opinion is, well, if you want Bitcoin, you have to learn this and you have to go down the rabbit hole, then don't talk about mooning and don't talk about wanting mass adoption, because you are not putting yourself in the shoes of a new person or somebody who is working 40, 50 hours a week, who has 2 kids, who has like half an hour in the evening to dedicate to this. Like, you're in the rabbit hole. You do this full time. You can read Mastering Bitcoin and spend all day on Twitter and Reddit and learning. These people aren't. You know, yeah.
That's it. I know how you feel. I know exactly how you feel. That's how I think too. It's I'm privileged to get to talk about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and all that stuff all the time. It's great, and I get to learn all this stuff, and I try to share some of that knowledge that I discover along the way with people. Now, I want to move on a little bit. What do you think are some of the kind of the biggest challenges? I mean, outside of just the user experience, the basic stuff, actually facing Bitcoin right now. You know, do you think it's regulations? Do you think the regulators are hurting, you know, Bitcoin adoption? Do you think it's, you know, fiat on ramps? Do we need more fiat on ramps or something else?
No, neither of those worry me at the moment. Like, I think in certain jurisdictions you want to be worried about regulations, you know, Russia, China, places like that. But strictly speaking, like, even in China, you can get Bitcoin. Like, if you want Bitcoin, you can get Bitcoin. I don't worry about regulations too much. Do I worry about on-off ramps? No. I think if you want to buy Bitcoin, you can. What are the biggest challenges? I think education is a big challenge. I think people expect people to understand too quickly why Bitcoin is important, why a shitcoin is a shitcoin, to understand the tech, to make a decision about which they should invest in. When, like, people expect too much. You know, people, like, you can't become a Bitcoin maximalist at the click of a finger. This stuff takes time. So I think one of the challenges is that we miss the right kind of leadership in Bitcoin. And when I say leadership, of course, we don't want to have a leader because it's decentralized, but you have people who take positions of leadership because they have expertise or they educate. Safety's a great example. Trace Mayer is a great example. You know, these are leaders. But I think we have a problem in terms of leadership where people actually really think about and understand adoption, like, for the normal guy. I think that's one problem. I've talked about UX. I think design is a massive problem in Bitcoin. And then I think the other biggest problem with Bitcoin is patience. Like, people just need to be a bit more patient. The most important thing I've done is I don't check price anymore. I can't tell you the price of Bitcoin today. I expect it's around 10,000, might be above, might be below, but I've stopped checking the price because that's the wrong incentive. So I think patience is a problem. What else do I think is a problem? I think people creating companies that can become valuable. There's some good companies out there. You know, you mentioned BlockFi before we started. I think they're good. I think Cars are a good company. I think there's some good exchanges out there, some good wallets. But creating viable long-term businesses that are based on Bitcoin is hard because you're at the whims of the market. You're at the whims of trading. The reason I think BlockFi is interesting is they are bridging the crypto and fiat world. So you can get a fiat loan from your crypto, or you can get interest in your, and that's a nice mix to me. And I think once Bitcoin becomes more integrated with the fiat world, you've got more chance of creating companies that can create value because they are less susceptible to the kind of fluctuations in the market. But at the same time, I don't even want to be a negative because I don't think Bitcoin has that many problems. I think it's doing fucking great. It's
Oh
gone
yeah,
from zero
I mean, look
to
at
200 billion. Yeah.
that's right. I mean, it's a pretty impressive 10-year run that we've had so far, and I think you're absolutely right. There's we're seeing more and
Well,
more
that's why I
stuff
say
being built around
patience.
it too. That's it. It's got actually. I literally made a video about this like 2 days ago. Like, patience, guys, patience in
Yeah, man.
investing. I mean, this is the thing. If you're here for Bitcoin, take that long term view. I mean, if don't buy it because you want to get rich tomorrow. That's not how it works. It's just be patient. Things will come.
Yeah, and don't worry about the problems in some ways. Just build, just do stuff. Like I can sit there and worry about people like trolling me or calling me a moron or insulting me and blah blah blah. And if I do, I'm just going to stop creating the content I want to create, or I can ignore them and just get on and create it. And that's the saying. You can worry about regulations, or you can just get on and build shit. What will be will be. And I
That's
just think
right.
just get on and do stuff, and don't worry too much.
You know who doesn't worry about regulations? Bitcoin.
Bitcoin doesn't give a fuck.
I like the concept of lending Bitcoin too, especially if you're taking that long-term view. I mean, I've just taken out loans, or not loans. I've loaned out Bitcoin to earn interest on BlockFi, Cred, and Crypto.com, just to kind of
Oh, so you're
have the
testing
experience.
them.
Yeah, to have the experience with all three of them, and they've got the best rates out of the half dozen or so players out there. So just kind of to see how it goes for 6 months and just see what the experience is, and then talk about it on the channel. Share the experience
Yeah.
with everybody.
Well, I really like BlockFi. Obviously, they're a sponsor. But one of the things about the sponsors is that I have the luxury sometimes of choosing my sponsor. Like if I didn't want to work with BlockFi, I could easily go to what is it? Blockchain on like what is it? Blockchain Capital, or I don't know, the ones that
One of
sound
the
like a
other guys,
venture
yeah.
firm. Yeah, or I could go to like any of the others and I could probably get a deal. The thing I like about BlockFi, I think they're the most professional in terms of they look more like a normal tech business than a crypto business.
Hmm.
I really like the team. They never did a token. They've got good investors. So I really like them as a business. And I get that some people aren't into these interest accounts because it goes to that not your keys, not your Bitcoin. There is a risk.
Hmm.
Is
There
it
is a
worth the
risk.
6.2% you get? But at the end of each month, I'm getting my interest and I'm happy with it. Would I put all my Bitcoin in there? No fucking way.
Nope.
Am I
Same.
allowed to put a small amount in? Yeah, and that's cool. And I get my like little bonus at the end of each month and I like it. I trust that they're not going to fuck up. They're not BitConnect to me and I'm happy with it. And I think, you know, with financial services, you're paying for risk, or you're
Yeah,
buying risk, or you're being
that's right.
rewarded for risk.
And
It's
there's
all
there's
getting a
risk
risk.
everywhere. There's risk putting your money in the
Yeah,
bank. This is what people don't understand. I
of
think the
course.
banks are safe. There's risk putting your money in the bank. Like how people don't get that. And I think unfortunately, BitConnect gave a lot just because it was never about lending. BitConnect was about scamming people, but they used the
Yeah,
terminology "lend your Bitcoin out." Like it wasn't lending your Bitcoin out; it was giving that to the giant scam Ponzi thing. Like that wasn't didn't have anything to do with lending. No, in no existence anywhere are you going to get 3% every single day. Like that was
yeah.
craziness, right?
It was a
And look, yeah,
Ponzi. It was bullshit.
it was a Ponzi, right? With something like BlockFi, you're getting 6.2% a year. A year, like that's a very competitive rate. I mean, you need 7% over 10 years to double your money. That's good, and you're not getting that at a bank. No way.
No fucking way. No
That's
way.
it.
So no, I trust it. I like it. I think but I like it as again. The reason I like it more is because I always see BlockFi as bridging the fiat and the crypto world. I like that. I think that's super interesting, and they're growing and they're creating a viable business. And in the end, they're going to be a financial services business of which Bitcoin will be part of it, fiat will be part of it, probably fiat stable coins will be part of it,
Hmm.
and they'll know what they're doing. And yeah, I trust them and I like them. I think they're a solid team as well. I've got to know them very well, and I implicitly trust them.
Yeah, it's that stable coin world too. I think actually, they do. I think you can deposit stable coins over there as well, and also get your interest and
Yeah,
stuff like that
GUSD, I
too.
think you can do it. I've been meaning to
That's
like
right,
just put a bid in
GUSD.
as well.
That's right, Gemini
Yeah, I've not
dollar.
done it. Yeah.
So that's it. I mean, that's another thing for people out there. Like, if for some reason you're like, I don't want to put my Bitcoin in there, but I've got 10,000 bucks sitting in my bank account. Don't leave 10,000 bucks in your bank account. You're getting like what 0.1 interest or something on that.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy. Like
Get
it's
7%.
yeah, I guess get your 7% over there on one of these other services. Like there's a lot of options. And I think that's really exciting. We are seeing so many different financial services actually coming up and around the whole cryptocurrency market, right? And obviously, being able to lend out your Bitcoin and get interest on that, that's pretty damn cool. But we are seeing a lot of other things come up too in terms of, different exchanging services and all this stuff. But what are your thoughts on the forks of Bitcoin? Do you think that they have hurt Bitcoin or made Bitcoin stronger?
Hmm. I think it's hard to tell, to be honest. I think you have to hypothesize. I mean, I think they've definitely made Bitcoin stronger in terms of its value proposition. Almost certainly. I mean, Bcash is a fucking dumpster fire. BSV is just fucking nonsense. So I think
It wants to be a
they've
dumpster fire.
yeah.
It's
I
not
think
even
I think
there.
they've
At least a
they've
dumpster
improved the
fire
value
keeps people warm.
Yeah, they've improved the value proposition. Has it taken developers away or investors? Like, is it a shame that, like, if you ignore Roger Ver as a scammer and all that bullshit stuff that people say, but it, would Bitcoin be stronger with someone like him involved, getting his behind it? Who knows? Probably it's made it stronger. At some point or another, the forks had to happen to prove whether they're of value or not, and they've all proved to be of little to no value. So it's made it
Mm.
stronger in terms of that. Yeah, probably, I would say put my get away from maybe the price would be different without the forks. Maybe the price would be better. Who knows? But I think certainly it's probably made it stronger. Yeah.
I think that overall the forks have actually been an incredibly valuable thing to have happened for the entire experiment of Bitcoin because you know what? The whole big blocks conversation, good. Go off and do the big blocks thing. Is it going to work? Are miners going to choose that? Is it going to provide the value that you believe it's going to provide? Well, put your money where your mouth is, and people did put their money where their mouth is, and the respect to
Lost it.
them for doing that, and they lost a lot of money, yeah, absolutely. But it Bitcoin came out of these things stronger, right? I mean, obviously there's been some market downs. I mean, I think the big December crash happened because BCH and BSV were going at each other and dumping a bunch of money to try and, outmine the other team and all that ridiculous drama. But Bitcoin came out of all this stronger. Bitcoin has now, I think, around 40 times the hash rate of BCH and around 80 times the hash rate of BSV. So, I mean, that just says everything. The miners have chosen Bitcoin, and it's great to go off and do those experiments. Now we know.
Yeah, and do you know what? I just don't have any interest in them really anymore. I've got no need to really care about them apart from maybe like I don't know. I've got nothing. There's nothing in
No,
it for me.
no. It's
I
one
just yeah,
one thing that's
there's
really
no value.
interesting for these is that they're still ranked so highly on the ranking sites, right? Because there's no chain audits to say who's moved their coins or whatever, so they just count that the total
Yeah.
amount of coins is the total amount of coins. When I would imagine that actually, if you look at like BSV for example, it's a fork of a fork, right? So how many of those coins were actually cashed in? There might be only a circulating supply of a couple million BSV, and yet
And
it's like number 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever on the ranking sites.
but
It's crazy.
but what's the ranking? What are you comparing it to, and how are you measuring it? It's just again, it's misleading. I guess it gives people some hope, but I only look at number one, and that's all I care about. The only other thing I have a mild interest in is Libra. I think Libra could prove to be an interesting on ramp into Bitcoin, but
Oh,
that's it.
interesting, interesting. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
as an on ramp into Bitcoin, perhaps I've got, I think, very little time overall for for Libra. I mean, because it's coming from Facebook, because the biggest credit card companies are involved in all this kind of stuff, it doesn't excite me at all. But in terms of maybe people getting awareness about cryptocurrency, and then we do see it, they have been a lot of conversations with like Gemini, for example, and it's just that blew my mind when I heard the Winklevoss twins are actually going to sit down with Zuckerberg again and collaborate on. That's crazy. But Coinbase has also been talking to them. Binance been talking to them. Yeah, I know, money, right? It's
I want to be a fly on the and I want to be a fly on the wall in that meeting. Yeah, but it won't be Mark Zuckerberg won't be in that meeting. That'll be David Marcus probably.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. But interesting times, man.
It certainly is. I mean, I think Libra's going to shake things up. Well, final question for you for today. The Bank of England governor, what's his name?
Mark Carney.
That guy. He came out and said, well, the idea, they're basically thinking about, well, a digital currency of some variety, whether it's going to be something like Libra or whatever, but a central bank issued cryptocurrency. Where do you think these fall in? Are you more excited about a central bank cryptocurrency? Are you more excited about Libra? Do you think that it's going to be a big competitor to Libra if a whole bunch of countries come together and launch this basket stablecoin kind of thing from the central banks?
Yeah, it's an interesting statement from Carney. I mean, I don't know, because he steps down soon, right? So he's creating headlines like, is he off to the IMF? Is he advertising for a role at Facebook? Fuck knows what he's up to. But I mean, like central banks are terrible. Central banks are terrible. They fuck everything up, right? And
it's like mafia organizations, man. It's crazy.
And yeah, so I struggle to get excited about it. What are the details? What is it? How does it work? Does it have an inflation schedule? Like, it's just not Bitcoin. So it's just another fiat shitcoin to me. So I struggle to get excited about it, but it's in anything that keeps cryptocurrency as a term in the press, which ultimately can become like a lead into Bitcoin. That's cool, right? That's ultimately what I want. But like, Bitcoin is fundamentally different from all these. The goals and objectives and the use cases are fundamentally different. So I don't. What are they saying? We want to create a cryptocurrency because we want to make money more honest. Because we fucked up with our money printing, in the past, and we see what Bitcoin's done, and we become honest, and we want honest money. Bullshit. So if they create a digital cryptocurrency, will they print more of this cryptocurrency as the economy falters? I struggle to get that interested.
Well, and I think it's very worrying too, because I don't want a world where we move towards a cashless society, which is what we're moving to. And it's not that I'm afraid of the idea of a cashless society. I'm afraid of the idea of a cashless society run by central banks, because we see how they behaved before. And you see, like, let's imagine China, because China's central bank has also discussed bringing out a digital currency. So let's imagine there's no cash option in China, but they already have their social credit program where you can't buy plane tickets and all this stuff. Like, well, let's just say all the money's digital and they control everything. They know exactly how you spend it, where you spend it, what you're doing. They can cut you off at the drop of a hat. Oh, you said something you didn't like. Well, your phone heard it and we recorded that, so you're cut off from your finances for a week.
Yeah. But also, a cashless society is discriminatory. Like, what the fuck's a homeless person going to do? They're not going to have a phone or a bank account. Like, we need cash. Like, some homeless people survive on donations. A cashless society is discriminatory. I do not want a cashless society. I think we need cash in society. So I don't like that.
Yeah, at least in our lifetimes. Maybe in maybe in the future it'll be much easier. We'll all be networked into the neural network, and the dude will just have a QR code on his hand or something like that. Or you can just telepath him $5 or something, and then, well, in that situation we can talk. But until then, there's a lot of situations. And look, think about all the old people who. You're 70 or 80 or, some Italian grandpa living up in the mountains. You're never going to get a freaking mobile phone and start doing internet banking and stuff like this. You need cash. So
you need cash, man.
That's it. Peter,
brother.
Peter, super interesting chat, man. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today. Bro. And for anyone who wants to listen to the What Bitcoin Did podcast, is linked down below in the descriptions. You guys can find that there. So, Peter, thank you so much.
All right, my man. Take care.